You know your political messaging is truly emotionally stable when it declares war on yard signs. Not policy, not corruption, not spending, cardboard. Welcome to Texas, where the cardboard is fragile, but the outrage is industrial strength. Across Collin, Denton, and Tarrant Counties, small signs have been popping up in front of larger Republican campaign signs, especially the ones that scream Trump Endorsed or MAGA. The smaller signs read things like MAGA Loves Pedos or Epstein Approved, and immediately the GOP alarm bells went off and the meter was reset to DEFCON 1. The Collin County GOP chair issued a statement calling the small sign placement vandalism, political sabotage, and, my personal favorite, blaming likely Democrats. Likely. That one adjective is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. Now, before we go any further, let's establish something clearly. Vandalism means damage. If someone is stealing signs, damaging signs, or defacing private property, that's wrong. But here's the uncomfortable reality. Placing one small sign in front of a larger sign without disturbing, defacing, or damaging the larger sign is not vandalism. What you have is proximity. It may be childish, it may be obnoxious, it may be intentionally inflammatory, but vandalism requires damage, and precision matters. They didn't lose property, they just lost visual dominance. That's not a crime, that's ego. But let's be honest here. If your political brand collapses because someone placed a $4 sign 6 inches in front of yours, the problem is not sabotage, it's insecurity. Strong ideas don't require perimeter defense. Strong ideas don't require a sheriff's department on standby for plywood interference. You know what a confident movement does? It laughs. It shrugs. It says, nice try. You know what an insecure movement does? It writes a 700-word email about cardboard terrorism. The truth of the matter is we don't know who did it. It could be Democrats. It could be independents. It could be disillusioned Republicans. It could be bored teenagers with a printer and too much time. It could even be someone trying to generate outrage for turnout motivation. What we're watching isn't a sign controversy, it's language escalation. By labeling this as vandalism, they immediately try to elevate it to a criminal conduct. They frame it as an attack on democracy. Then they create a villain. And then, without any evidence, they assign that villain a party label, likely Democrats. Ah yes, the invisible boogeyman clause. It's always the other team. It's never a rogue supporter, it's never bored teenagers, it's never someone manufacturing outrage for a turnout. Nope, it's the villains, with no names, no proof, no arrests, just vibes. That's not investigation, that's narrative construction. When you skip evidence and jump straight to partisan blame, you're not protecting democracy, you're feeding the outrage machine. Now let's address why those specific messages were chosen. Epstein approved. That's not random. Jeffrey Epstein had documented associations with powerful people across the political spectrum, red and blue. That's not fringe. That's public record. That's court record. That's mainstream reporting. So when someone sticks an Epstein approved in front of a Trump endorsed sign, they're not inventing a scandal out of thin air, they're making a political insinuation. You can call it unfair, you can call it misleading, you can even call it gross, but it's political speech. And political speech, even the ugly speech, is still speech, and it's not required to be polite. If movements brand themselves around moral superiority, family values, and protecting children, then critics are going to test that branding. That's just how politics works. You don't get a run on moral virtue and then be shocked when opponents poke at perceived hypocrisy. Here's the bigger issue, at least in the way I see it. When a party leadership responds to cardboard signs like their Molotov cocktails, it signals fragility. Strong political movements don't panic over yard signs. They rebut, they clarify, they move on. Instead, we're seeing dramatic calls to report to authorities. Authorities. For cardboard. If this is the threshold for law enforcement involvement, we may need to start a task force for sarcastic bumper stickers next. Let me be clear. I'm not defending the message. I'm defending consistency. Here's what fascinates me. The same political culture that screams, First Amendment, when social media moderates a post, suddenly wants law enforcement involved over sarcastic yard decor. Free speech for me, criminal speech for thee. Sorry, free speech still protects speech we don't like. If a Republican places a sign criticizing Democrats in harsh language, that's political expression. But if someone places a sign criticizing Republicans in harsh language, that's also political expression, provided that they're not trespassing or damaging property. You don't get to champion the First Amendment when it's your megaphone, and then criminalize it when it's someone else's cardboard. That's not principle, that's preference. Consistency is the price of liberty. But notice what they're not talking about. Instead of debating policy, property taxes, border enforcement, school choice, civil liberties, they're debating sign stacking. Texas politics has become a reality show where everyone's fighting over stage lighting while the script never changes. And the more dramatic the reaction, the more fundraising emails get written, because outrage is a renewable resource. We've replaced ideas with aesthetics, replaced policy with branding, and replaced persuasion with outrage. And both major parties do this. The red team screams sabotage, the blue team smirks. The voters roll their eyes. Meanwhile, nothing structural changes. Here's a simple litmus test. If your messaging can be destabilized by a $4 piece of corrugated plastic placed 6 inches in front of yours, your message wasn't stable to begin with. The problem isn't the cardboard, it's the confidence. Movements built on conviction don't need panic statements. They need composure. Texas deserves better than performative outrage cycles. We deserve evidence before accusations, precision before hyperbole, and policy before theatrics. This isn't vandalism, it's politics. Messy, juvenile, sometimes tacky politics. And if we can't handle that without summoning the outrage cavalry, maybe it's time we just admit that the rodeo clowns aren't just in the other party. They're everywhere. And if we're going to survive another election cycle in Texas, we need thicker skin than laminated campaign slogans. Otherwise, the only thing truly fragile around here isn't democracy. It's the cardboard ego. Welcome to Beyond Red and Blue, where the only thing thinner than the signs is the outrage threshold.